Well, hello everyone, welcome back to Historical Perspectives. Today's lesson, theme 11, is on using evidence. But before we do that, let's have a look at the assessment. So I'm just going to speak to you now for 2 or 3 minutes about this first assessment that you will have at the end of this course. This is an important one. It's worth 60% of your overall grade. But let's go through the assessment overview, and I can perhaps explain some of the most important things that you need to know about this assessment. So, at the end of this course, you will be, or this cycle of lessons, you will need to give an individual presentation. What will you have to do, and how much time will you have? You will present a document analysis of one or more primary source documents that could be used to help prove the thesis, your answer to your historical question. The analysis should be critical, explaining the problems of bias in the source and how it could be used to help prove a thesis. Your presentation will be approximately 10 minutes. Okay, so what does this mean? Primary source document. Now, in the following mini lesson, this will be about primary source documents, so that will be made clear to you. But in short, what you have to do is give a presentation using presentation software. That means standing up in front of the class, with slides. Perhaps you've used Microsoft PowerPoint or some other presentation software before. You would use this and you would present to the class some sources. So you would show on your slides your sources, pictures of them depending on what the sources are, maybe quotations from the sources, this type of thing. And you will discuss these sources and how they relate to your historical topic. Now, perhaps you have a thesis. Perhaps you have a historical topic, right? And you can link your source documents to this idea. Don't worry if you don't have this at the moment. There's some flexibility with this assessment as well. Most importantly, though, is the analysis has to be critical. That means you are critical of your source documents. You do not simply accept what is in the source documents as being true. Being critical means you evaluate them. You decide how useful they are and also what problems there are with using these sources for people working in history. So this is the idea, and this also will be in the next lesson, explaining what these things are. So this first video lesson, which follows this one, will be very important for you for developing the skills you need for your presentation. Example, question, or task. So here it gives you guidelines, instructions for what you need to do. You need to include your name and your course number, citation for the documents, and your historical question. So presumably this will be on a slide. At the beginning of your presentation, you will show all of this. Maybe this will be 2 slides, maybe 3. It's up to you. Name, course number, date, citation for your document, and your historical question. The question that you're interested in, or the topic that you're interested in, right? This is what you would want to show early on in your presentation. Then, in the main body of your presentation, so this is the main part of your presentation, describe the document. Describe the source. What is it? Is it a letter? Is it a transcript? Is it a government record? So on. Is it something else? Right? There's many options here. Where did it come from? Its date. Explain where it came from, who wrote it, summarize the contents to the class, and then critique the document. Here comes the critical part in the presentation, right? Talking about its reliability, how trustworthy is this source, its truthfulness, biases and limitations, as well as advantages. Again, I'll just mention in the following presentation, all of this will be spoken about. Now, another key point you have to include in your presentation is specifically indicate how evidence from this document will help prove your thesis. It is not like an annotation, so not like that previous assessment. You should be very specific. What part of your thesis does it help to prove, bearing in mind the limitations and biases of this source? This is part of your presentation. You will probably quote, in this part of the presentation, you will probably quote from the document. Alright, so in general, we've got a presentation you need to do wherein you say something critical about the source and you link it to an argument. Perhaps it informs an argument. Perhaps it makes you change an argument. Perhaps it makes you develop an argument more, right? So this is what you want to be thinking about. How are you going to do this? Okay, assessment weighting. I'll just do this next part quickly. The assessment weighting is 60%, so this is a large chunk of your overall mark. The learning outcomes that are assessed, this means here's the knowledge it's helping you to develop or testing you to see if you have this ability. Can you explain the role of primary sources in academic study and their significance in historical narratives? Can you show that you can use primary and secondary sources to research and analyze a historical period or event from different perspectives? Okay, so you're showing these abilities. And assessment coverage, these are the things that this assessment, these are the different themes you can draw on. You can take your knowledge from these themes and use them in this assessment. How will this assessment be marked? Very quickly. Task achievement, how well you evaluate problems with bias, and how well you link this to your thesis. Organization and cohesion, this means how well structured your presentation is, and how well you linked your ideas together. That means how well you linked slide to slide. Your use of sources, how relevant your source is. You want to present a source which is useful, of course. And language range and accuracy. This is something to do with your language. Okay, so your ability in language, of course. So there's a quick overview of the assessment. Now, I would recommend you read through this in your own time now. And in your first class of this term, your teacher will want to talk to you about this to check to see how much of it you understand. So it's a good time now for you to have a look at this.